A child died in a cave 50,000 years ago. We don't know how. We don't know why. All that survived was a fragment of their pinky finger, buried in Siberian limestone for millennia. In 2008, Russian archaeologists found it, cataloged it, assumed it was human, sent it to Germany for confirmation. 2 years later, the lab called back. This isn't human. What do you mean it isn't human? It's not Neanderthal either. It's something else. That pinky bone belonged to a species we didn't know existed, a parallel branch of humanity that lived, hunted, loved, and died for hundreds of thousands of years without us ever knowing they were there. They called them Denisovans. But here's what nobody expected. When scientists started hunting for traces of this lost species in modern populations, they found something that broke all the rules. The people carrying the most Denisovan DNA weren't in Siberia, weren't in China, weren't anywhere near that cave. They were in Australia. Aboriginal Australians carry up to 5% Denisovan DNA, 1 million base pairs of genetic code from a species discovered 7,000 kilometers away in a frozen cave they never visited. And that fingerprint is still alive, still working, still protecting them from diseases their ancestors encountered 50,000 years ago. This isn't just about finding an old bone. This is about discovering that an entire human species has been hiding inside Aboriginal DNA this whole time, and the world had no idea. So, when David Reich's team at Harvard started mapping Denisovan ancestry across the globe in 2016, they expected to find it clustered around Siberia. Instead, they found an invisible line cutting across Southeast Asia. West of Indonesia, almost zero Denisovan DNA. East of Indonesia, the numbers explode. This line matches something called Wallace's line, a deep ocean trench separating two biological worlds that have been isolated from each other for millions of years. West side, tigers, elephants, Asian wildlife. East side, marsupials, kangaroos, Australian biodiversity. Even during the Ice Age, when sea levels dropped and land bridges appeared everywhere else, this trench stayed flooded. The currents too dangerous, the water too deep. It was an uncrossable barrier for most species, but not for Denisovans. Somehow this ancient human species had spread from frozen Siberia all the way to tropical Southeast Asia. They'd crossed barriers that stopped everyone else. And when the first Aboriginal ancestors began their journey out of Africa 50,000 years ago, island hopping across Southeast Asia toward Australia, they ran straight into them. In 2021, archaeologists found proof, a cave in Sulawesi, Indonesia. Inside was a 17-year-old girl who died 7,200 years ago. They nicknamed her Bessie. Her DNA confirmed it. Denisovans had been living on these islands long before modern humans arrived. They'd adapted to island life, tropical climates, ocean crossings, and when Aboriginal ancestors arrived, they didn't fight them off. They lived with them for thousands of years. The genetic evidence suggests first contact happened around 44,000 years ago. Not a brief encounter, a long coexistence, interbreeding, cultural exchange, survival together. Then something changed. As the Ice Age ended, sea levels rose, land bridges vanished, Australia became isolated, and for the next 50,000 years, Aboriginal populations stayed that way. While mainland Asia got swept by wave after wave of new migrations, farmers from China, herders from the steppes, diluting and replacing earlier populations, Aboriginal Australians remained untouched. Their genome became a time capsule, the only intact record of what happened when two human species met and became one. But here's the part that makes this discovery genuinely important. The Denisovan DNA didn't just stick around by accident, it's still working. Scientists found clusters of Denisovan genes that are strongly conserved in Aboriginal populations. Evolution doesn't keep things unless they're useful. Most of these genes control the immune system. OAS2 and OAS3, genes that detect invading viruses and shut them down. TNF-AIP3, a gene that regulates immune response. FADS1, a gene that helps process different types of fats, crucial for survival when food sources change. When Aboriginal ancestors arrived in Australia 50,000 years ago, they encountered completely new environments, new diseases, new pathogens. Instead of waiting tens of thousands of years to evolve immunity, they got a shortcut. They inherited an immune system from Denisovans that was already adapted to the region. It's the same trick Tibetans used. They inherited a gene called EPAS1 from Denisovans that prevents blood from thickening at high altitudes. Without it, they'd suffer strokes living in the Himalayas. For Aboriginal Australians, Denisovan DNA was survival insurance for a new world. So what did Denisovans actually look like? Frustratingly, we barely know. All we have is a finger bone, 3 teeth, 1 jawbone from Tibet, and a disputed skull from China. That skull, called the Harbin cranium or Dragon Man, was found in the 1930s, then hidden in an abandoned well for 80 years to protect it from war. When scientists finally examined it, they found something massive: thick brow ridges, square eye sockets, brain the size of ours. Some think it's a new species. Others think it's the first Denisovan face we've ever seen. The teeth are enormous, roots like tree trunks, archaic and powerful. But the finger bone, graceful, delicate, almost modern. We're looking at puzzle pieces that don't fit together yet. What we do know is they survived for 200,000 years, from frozen Siberia to tropical islands. They made jewelry, processed ochre, crafted sophisticated tools. They weren't primitive, they were parallel. And then they vanished, except they didn't. They live on in millions of people across Asia and the Pacific, in immune systems fighting off viruses, in genes processing food, in adaptations to altitude and climate. But nowhere is that legacy stronger than in Aboriginal Australians. They are the living archive of a species the rest of the world forgot. That pinky bone in Siberia wasn't just a fossil. It was the first breadcrumb leading to a revelation that rewrites human history. Aboriginal Australians aren't just descendants of the first people to leave Africa. They're descendants of 2 human species, modern humans and Denisovans, braided together into something new. Human evolution isn't a tree with neat branches. It's a river that splits, flows apart, and crashes back together, mixing, blending, creating something stronger. The Denisovans left no cities, no writing, almost no bones, but they left their fingerprint in the DNA of millions. And every time we sequence a new genome, we find more ghosts we didn't know existed. What does it mean that an entire human species has been living inside Aboriginal DNA this whole time? That isolation preserved what migration erased everywhere else? Tell me what you think, and subscribe, because the deeper we dig into ancient DNA, the stranger the story becomes. We weren't alone. We were never alone. And the proof has been hiding in plain sight for 50,000 years.